Hello, good morning. I got it on camera. First start off, great. Good to see you. It's welcome to Arty Chat. It's myself, Lee Boyd. I'm an artist, and I've been doing podcasts now for about 20 odd weeks since the beginning of COVID. So today we're going to be carrying on with the portrait there of Desiree, one of my art students in real life that we do here in the Arts Centre in Northern Ireland. Town called Newton Ards. Those classes were all cancelled because of COVID, so I decided to continue with this and do it live. So I'll just get rid of that lovely square box on my face because that don't look great, does it? Let me just check that box. There we are, that's better. Don't know if it's better because you can see me. It is early in the morning, the state of my face. So yeah, welcome. It's always good to see it. It's one of the highlights of my week because I get to draw for 2 hours, and hopefully you do the same as well. So the way this is set up is you can either draw along, you can take a screenshot of Desiree and have a go yourself at doing the picture that we're doing, or you can do your own work and work along on that. Ask any questions you want in chat. Say hello when you come in so we know who's there. You can talk to each other in the chat bar as well. It's not just about answering questions that I may have and the banter that way. But yeah, if you're having a particular issue with your artwork or your drawings and you want to know how to get past a certain thing, ask me and hopefully I'll be able to give you an answer for it. And continue with this portrait today. Had a slight, well, it wasn't a technical issue, it was a cat incident. Inky, our lovely new kitten, is going nuts. She's going through her teenage years, and she runs around the house at 1,000 miles an hour, and she managed to bang into my iPad. So if I can just show you, I don't know if you can see on the screen there, I've got my iPad set up, and that's probably over to the camera. Good morning, Desiree. How are you? Alex, good morning to you. I was just saying about the iPad. Inky banged into this morning, knocked it onto the floor, and now Desiree, your portrait has a lovely kind of, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Can you see that sort of Andy Warhol kind of print effect with lots of different colours? You are supposed to be in black and white, but the screen is now knackered. So if it's not technical, you definitely don't need to see my face that close. So yeah, because of the accident she had, you've now got this lovely rosy glow. So thank you, Inky, for that. But yeah, we'll carry on regardless. It's actually done, I don't know if you can see, if I zoom right in, sometimes you can do this with computer packages like Photoshop and things, where it's kind of broken highlights down. It's like a bluish shape around the really high highlights. Now, even though it was an accident, I was looking at that thinking, that's actually not a bad thing to do, because it breaks the shapes down for you. So all what I keep saying to you, break things down to simple shapes. Don't try and draw things. When we're looking at shadow shapes, because they're quite abstract, they're not a thing, and you're following a shape. It can be the shape of a highlight or a shape of a shadow, and it can be a tonal thing as well. So rather than just doing all the dark shadows and the bright highlights, it could be the midtones, those shapes that you're drawing out. If you to put it through a package like Photoshop, you can. There's a filter you can put on it called Posterize, and it breaks it down for you, and you can select the different levels of kind of posterization. It's called, and you can have a few, so say 3 or 4, and it will break the basic tones down into these kind of blocky shapes. And it can give you an indication where they are in your drawing. So you might want to have a go at doing this, where you take your reference picture, put it through a simple Photoshop package like that. Most packages have a similar application to it. Might call it something slightly different depending on the package, and then you can print them out. So you can have different variations of different levels of shadows. They're just an indication to where things are. You need to kind of go back to your original reference picture as well to sort of see if the shadows are quite right, but it'll give you a basic suggestion of where shadow shapes are, just to help you along a little bit. I don't use that. Unfortunately, Inky has decided to destroy my iPad, so I now don't have a choice. So I'll be kind of referring back to this picture I have on the screen, just to double check. The other issue is I can't find my drawing glasses this morning. If anybody's been watching the Arty Chat over the last few weeks, yeah, happy accident, Alex. It is. You'll know that there's normally something that goes wrong. Normally it's the computer. Today it seems to be my cat and myself, because I can't find my drawing glasses. So if I look really angry at the screen and I'm like that, I'm not angry. It's a fact I can't see very well. I do have these glasses on my head, so you don't need to point out, Lee, your glasses are on your head. These are my kind of normal everyday seeing glasses, but I have reading glasses as well that I normally look at the screen and look at the drawing at. So I'll be doing a lot of squinting this morning, hence all of these lovely crow's feet lines on my face. So yeah, Michael, good morning. Kathy, how are you? Thank you for your message on Instagram as well. That was lovely. Thank you so much for that. Michael, you sent me a picture just before we came online of a new portrait you're working on, and you're talking about doing a portrait in charcoal, but possibly adding some colour into it as well, some little suggested nuances or focused areas of colour, and how to work between those two things. It's a lovely medium to work in charcoal, and you can add colour to it. You can use pastels for that, but you can use pastel pencils as well, rather than just the blocks of pastels. You might need to think about the surface that you're drawing on. I would kind of suggest that you can, if you're putting that sort of, there's a picture of a female boxer, and it's quite a black, dark background, and she's kind of emerging out of it a little bit. And you wanted to put some nuances of colour on her lips and her eye. Rather than drawing in the area in black charcoal, you can pick out the colours that you need to use first. So do a little colour study of the camera's gone off. There you go, switch that back on again. Again, if you've been watching the chat, you know that this camera keeps switching on and off, so it's a regular part of the process. Yeah, so you can work out your colour study first, and let me just get this back up, of the colours that you're going to use. It stops you worrying about them when you're doing your drawing. First of all, you need to map everything out in as normal, so working out the shapes and the placement of things. But before you go in to start shading and rendering things, and especially where you might place little marks with a charcoal pencil as to where things are, you need to kind of almost rub them back so you can barely see them before you start putting charcoal on, pastels on, because the mixture of that black charcoal with the pastels will start to darken that pastel down, and it may be that you don't need a dark charcoal mixed in with it, and you might need some more pure colour. So you'll be literally drawing with the pastel pencils rather than colouring in between the black lines of where the mouth is, if that makes sense. So if you work out your colours first, what I would say to you is try and find a medium toned paper. There's a gunmetal grey paper which is great for charcoal work. It is by Dale Rowney. It comes in large A1 sheets, so you can cut it down to the size that you want and have plenty there for another drawing. But experiment on that with your colours, so you're not experimenting on a white page and trying to transfer it over to a grey page. So this is what I'm saying, whatever drawing surface you're working on for your artwork, always have that another page, even if it's just a scrap of it. Make sure it's the same paper, because any effects that you do on, say, that paper needs to be the same on your finished artwork. So sometimes people go, oh, this is very expensive paper, I don't want to waste it, therefore I'll use cheaper paper to do the testings on. And when you transfer your test onto your proper image, what you can find is that the effects are slightly different, or the colours might be slightly different. So especially if you're working on that sort of gunmetal grey tone paper, if you were to transfer that over onto from a white page onto a grey page, the colours might look different because of the vibrancy of them. Build up your pastel, so work. I suggest trying to find a lighter tone with your colours first, and then build up the darknesses on top. And rather than just using blacks to darken your pastel, think about it in tones of that colour. So you might use a very creamy colour, and then go into a slightly sepia tone, and then looking at your shadows and thinking, well, that shadow is quite purplish, and adding a purple into the shadow, and then maybe a little bit of indigo blues to kind of really darken it down. So you'll get a tonal finish, or maybe then a really dark, say, burnt umber. So you'll get a really lovely darker finish. Then you can add a nuance of a black charcoal pencil to really darken down the darkest darks. That will give you a lovely colour tonal range. You've got to think about your tonal range in colour rather than in monochrome, black and white. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Give it a go, and always, if you're trying anything out, I don't mind if you contact me through Facebook. You can go to my Facebook page, Lee Boyd Artist. You can message me there, ask me a question. If you're working on something during the week, you don't have to wait till Saturday. But if Saturday is the only chance to get to the computer, not a problem. Any problems you're having with your artwork, let me know in here, and we can try and sort them out for you. So yeah, I will try and pick the right thing. I'm going to get rid of this lovely computer software window and turn it back to that one. There, I'm back. Hello. Top right hand corner. So, as I said, we're going to continue with Desiree's portrait today. This will be the last day. Great advice. Oh, no problem, Michael. No problem. My pleasure. I had a lovely trip around the town this morning where we live. I had to go and pick up a package for Andrea because at the post office, and so I ran to town really quickly before jumping online. That's why I think I've left my glasses in the car. And yeah, normally I have a home brew coffee, but I kind of put it back into my own mug. I popped into a coffee shop called Colonel Paddy's, just on the corner opposite the post office, and just necked it on the way back. So I was going to sort of have another coffee in here, but I thought it might make me a little bit too hyper. Bad enough as it is. So yeah, how's your week been? Let me know. Chat to each other as well. You're more than welcome to have, say hello to each other and have your own conversations there. Let's say the best resource for art itself is other artists and other people who are in the same boat as you to bounce ideas off, or to ask how you're getting on with your artwork. You don't have to just wait for me to ask the questions. You can have a chat yourself. If you've got advice as well, when anybody asks a question, it's not just my advice that's important, it's yours as well. So if you've had the same experience, you can let people know. If people are having difficulties or troubles in their artwork and they don't know, it might be a confidence thing, it might be a technical thing, it's good to say, look, I've had the same issue as well, this is what I did. And it might be different to what I'm saying, but it might be still relevant. So don't be afraid of letting people know in the chat. That's what it's there for. So yeah, we've got 5 people watching, which is great. I do normally chat an awful lot before I actually start drawing, but I kind of told myself this morning, no, you should get on with the drawing, Lee. And hopefully, I don't know if we'll get this finished today, but this will be the last week we're drawing Desiree. I was going to do a little bit more to it. I thought, no, I will actually wait and finish this, try and get this one done. So I'll get the majority of it finished and then tweak it later on during the week. And then we'll start a new one next week. I think Leslie's up next. So yeah, if you want to be a part of this artwork, basically it's a collection of portraits of people who've joined in on the chat and the art live demos over the last, I think it's 22, 23 weeks. this is going to be one artwork just to kind of, as a collaboration, to kind of identify the COVID experience for everybody. So yeah, I think it's quite an important piece for me personally, and that's why I do artwork. You know, I do artwork for myself. I do commissions as well, which are for other people, but I always do commissions that I think are engaging for me as an artist, and if I don't feel that it's really suiting my work, it won't necessarily benefit the person commissioning the work. I always try and pass that person on to somebody who might be able to do it if I know of anybody. So commissions are always good fun. I also enjoy the experience because it's much more of a collaborative thing. So when people come up to me and they say, "Can you do me artwork? I want this," it's trying to delve a little bit deeper into what it is they want. And I don't know if you've had anybody ask you to do a drawing for them. It's to try and pick out what it is about the artwork that they want. What do they want from their artwork? Is it to commemorate somebody? Is it to remember somebody? If it's a portrait, is it a landscape that they go to? It's to ask further questions. So I might just give you a reference picture. Excuse me, burping. Yes, so they might give you, say, a reference picture, and it's not just about copying the image. You're trying to add another layer to it. So ask them the questions about what that place means to them. Why have they chosen it? What is it for? Where is it going? Is the other thing. All of these things, delve a little bit deeper and listen to what they're saying, because that often gives you a greater scope to build in different things to it. So you might play around with the colours, you may play around with the composition, but talk to them about it. And what I normally do is do a brief sketch or composition study first before going into doing the artwork, and just send that back to them to make sure that they're kind of happy with the image that they are hopefully going to receive at the end. And often when they ask you for something and you do that little study of it and you send it to them and you think it ticks all their boxes, they will then go, "Oh no, that's not what I meant. I meant this," and they will fine tune it for you, and therefore you're able to sort of achieve the results that they want, but you're understanding it from your artistic point of view. So there's a balance and a collaboration in that. BB, hello. Great name, by the way. You should add yourself to complete the circle. Add myself. I'm here. Is this about the chat? What was my favourite portrait? Good question, BB. I don't have one, and it's the same for artists as well. It's also the same for music. When people say, "Who's your favourite musician?" I have like a. Remember iPods where you used to press shuffle that used to play all of your music together? Art's like that for me. I have lots of different appreciation for different artists and the different things that they do. You know, from modern artists like David Cassan, Vincent Desiderio is another one. Great painter. Angela, good morning. There is a picture by Toulouse-Lautrec. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a portrait, but it's called A Laundress, and she's staring out of a window. And it's not the graphic can-can dancing girls type of work. It's almost more Degas-ish, but they were all contemporaries of the same period, so they kind of heavily influenced each other. And it's more about the composition in that picture that I really captures something for me, because it allows me to wonder what her life is like and what her aspirations are. And she's a laundress and she's working in a basement and she's washing at a sink, and she's kind of almost reaching out with her head and the body to like a little window, which is bringing in a little bit of light to the room. And you can't see her face, it's more the back of her head, and it's more of the aspirational thing that she's wanting to be elsewhere. She's trying to escape something. and I like the narrative. I do love portraits that have a great layout narrative. There are some amazing artists who can do amazing lifelike pictures, but there are other artists who do that and add something else. It's also ephemeral. You can't quite grasp it, but there's a story behind something, and that's a lot of work done behind the scenes to get to that picture. They play around with the composition, and they set the theme, and they set the almost the scene of the portrait as well. Lots of old portraiture, they'll add little tiny objects to infer status or story of their life or their aspirations and things like that. And I love all those little nuanced things. So yeah, good question. I like that. What else we got there? What about The Last Dinner and Leonardo da Vinci? Leonardo da Vinci is one of my artistic heroes because he was an experiment. He played around with lots of different elements. He just had a question about how things worked, where things were placed. He played around with perspective, and he didn't just keep to the truth of the perspective. So for things like The Last Supper, the Last Dinner, you can see both on top of the table and underneath it, which you shouldn't be able to do because of the perspective that you're looking at the picture at. But it doesn't look off, or it doesn't look a bit weird. It actually just looks normal. And there's lots of different elements in there, and all the figurative posturing of all of the figures give you that narrative as well. And I'm sure you've seen the Da Vinci Code with the male and the female symbol, as that is the vessel, and the morphalic symbol that they use for the stripes on the arm of a sergeant, like the upside down V, and the placement of those two things next to each other. So you've got the central character, obviously Jesus, and the character next to him. And the question were, is he kind of inferring that is actually Mary Magdalene? So you get the M, but you get the female and the male V shapes. Now he did play with lots of subtle compositional elements that are so subtle that they can be overlooked just as a visual image of the entire thing. And as you look into it, so there are no cups on the table to drink from when it's the Last Supper. So you have the idea of the chalice. All these little elements, I think all those little elements are really interesting to build in the story of something. So yeah, that's when I think about it. I think it's been overpainted. And I don't mean by overpainted by Leonardo da Vinci, I mean over the centuries people have had a go at keeping it alive on the wall and repaired it and painted over it. So I don't know what that original image must have looked like. Leonardo da Vinci practiced an awful lot with different mediums. There was no sort of B&Q of the day where you could go around and go, oh, I'm doing a wall, it's outside, or it's on a wall on the inside and it's on plaster, so I need this particular type of paint. There was no kind of department store or art store where you could go down to. You had to make this stuff yourself, and you had to experiment with painting time, how absorbent the plaster was. If you sealed it, how did you seal it? What sort of construction is the plaster? How is that going to affect the paint? And obviously over a period of time it starts to disintegrate, so people have gone, oh, can't lose the image, we'll paint over it a little bit, to a greater or less extent. So there's the original image, I don't know how much of that is left. There's also been times through history where it's nearly destroyed, I think, at one point during the Second World War. So the surface wasn't necessarily protected as it would be today. So I don't know how much of that original image is actually left. I know they've done plenty of studies by x-raying it and things like that, but yeah, it's interesting how that kind of the history of the artwork, it takes on a life of its own past when the artist painted it. I think that's always an interesting thing for when you're studying artworks. I don't mean studying as in I must go to school, but when you're just looking at them and studying them. Oh, to this set of portraits, so to add myself to the circle. Yeah. Good point. Maybe I should. maybe I am in a way because I am the artist drawing them, so that's my addition to it. I get what you mean now, Alex. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit slow. Uh, Talking earlier of glasses, my sight is changing glasses off of drawing glasses to see the picture I'm drawing. Yeah, I can't do any bifocals either. Any tips? Yep, you have one on your head and one on your face, and you swap them over like that. And that's what I do. Other than when I can't find them, and then I have to squint. Uh, so that's my advice. Not great advice, but that's, sorry about that. I have got contact lenses. I do film for extras work and stuff, so I've got contact lenses when I do that. But I still need reading glasses, so I've got another third prescription, which only work when I've got contact lenses in. So that might be the other way. So I don't know, possibly. Yeah, so I know the chatting in the stream there, Alex. Yeah, I know sometimes when I'm rattling on and then having to scale back to where the conversation's going, but it's all part of the social media experience, isn't it? Uh, yeah, uh, yeah. I know. Where did pig come from? Listen, see, typing and working on stuff at the same time. I've hit send for things and then look back and gone, oh no, predictive text has taken over. And it said something completely different. Then you have to go back in and apologise for it and then write. But listen, if you type something and it's not what you meant, I'll probably understand it's just a typing error. You start commenting. No, please do keep commenting. Oh, I like it. Baby, what was your breakfast today? Love the questions, baby. What was your breakfast? I don't mind. That's it. This art chat can go on. You don't even see on. I'm not flashing them off my guns, but I do have my picture of Leonardo da Vinci as a rabbit. The reason why I had this done was I did an artwork, and I liked the way Leonardo da Vinci didn't just accept what was going on in his time. He was pushing past what was known, and I think that as a central core for most artists is an important one, where you're constantly trying to push yourself, not necessarily to break new ground for the art world as a whole. You've got to think of much more kind of locally, where what's going to push you further forward, and challenge yourself with pictures, things that you've never done before. It's not about pushing outside of your comfort zone, but it's more of a quizzical wondering, what happens if I'll try this, and what would happen. And there will be a lot of things that don't quite make the mark, make the image that you want to create, but that helps your learning. It pushes you further forward as an artist. A lot of artists are fearful of the mistake and add a lot more pressure onto themselves. But if you make discoveries through your artwork by making errors, you know how far your limits are. So when you get towards them, you'll know where to sort of pull back a little bit, or if things are going particularly well and you've seen something else that another artist done, you want to try that. Use influences from around you. So go out there and look at different artworks. Look at the ones that really inspire you. When you have a look, there's a question from BB earlier, who's your favourite portraits? Have a look at thousands. Mooch through them. Even if it's just scrolling through, it'll slowly start to pick up on your subconscious about what visually interests you. And how can you start to add those things into your works if you're playing with light, or you're playing with composition, or you start to play with colour? How you want to add these elements into your artwork. And it might be quite tentative to begin with. It might not go quite so well because you've not been doing it for so long. But you need to kind of, rather than just go, oh, that didn't work, I'll never do it again. Go, why didn't it work? What was it I did? How could I do this better? It's how you build up from there. So if you get used to that process of building up your art experience and adding things into it, your drawings will naturally get better because you're doing more of the artwork. So not being fearful. If it's a commission and they've booked you because you draw in a particular way and that's what they want to see. That's okay. It's working within your realm of experience. But for your own artwork, occasionally you kind of go, okay, I've hit and attained a good level here. I'm happy with the effects that I'm creating. I'm happy with the images that I'm creating. But if you do them over a long period of time, you start to go, I want to change, I want to add a little bit more. That's when you need to kind of step back and review your artwork and see what it is you'd like to achieve or like to change. And when you can identify those things, it's to try and seek out the information to help you move your artwork forward, if that makes sense. All of those things add to your art experience and add to your artwork, and it's almost, you can't sort of point it at it as a thing and say do this and this will happen. That naturally, the more you create, the more drawing or art you produce, you will get better. It's levels of practice, because you'll refine naturally hand-eye movements or coordination, manipulation of the mediums, things like that will start to feel more comfortable and more second nature, so you will get a better experience out of them and therefore be able to do things a bit better. So you'll naturally progress the more you do. The problem I find with most people is when they're starting off, their expectations of themselves is up here. I need to be like a professional artist who's been doing this their whole life in 2 days, and you have to kind of manage your level of expectation of yourself and break it down, and break down your drawings or your artworks into more bite-sized chunks, so you're not trying to create that masterpiece. That's your aim, that's where your aim is for all of your artworks, but it's to understand, okay, if I'm not going to achieve it, I need to break it down into what is it I struggle with, what is it I have problems doing in my artwork, and practice those until you build that skill level up till you can then look at maybe tonal aspects or line quality or composition ideas, and you can build those things up. You don't have to just do one at a time. You can be aware of several different elements of development in your work. I'm the same. I look at my work and go, it's okay, it's representational, it's got elements that I like about it, but there's more I would like to do. I've seen other artists work and that's really inspiring. Now, those artists might be completely unaware of the elements in their work those are inspiring to me. It's how I view their art and pick elements out of it. It might be just second nature to them and they don't even think about it, but for me it's an element of my artwork where I'm going, that's kind of missing. And it might be the quality of light, it might be the more natural flow or softness to their work, where on elements of my work I might want to break it down a little bit further. I might want to deconstruct the representationalism and add a bit more expressiveness to it, not to a point where it's become abstract, but I want to express more than just the image. I want to express the essence of things, so I'll play around with not just relying on the photograph, but thinking about what the image is and what that means to me, and drawing the marks that are representational of that. Now that sounds quite an abstract thought process, but what I mean is, if you do a very soft, delicate picture, you might draw very soft and lightly to make it feel like it's soft and delicate. Or if you want an aggressive, explosive picture, you might be marking your page in a very aggressive, expressive way that gives you a different feel. So the mark making starts to add influence to your artwork as well. So it's not just about doing a photocopy version of the image. You might add to it. If you're doing that with a sense of your own control about where it is you want to take your artwork to, you can answer your own questions. There's no right or wrong to that answer, but I think the key thing is you need to be honest with yourself about the image you're creating. Is it achieving what you want? And this is what I was saying about that experimentation, going off and seeking out different artworks and different influences and things like that. Answer your own questions. If you're doing something and you go, yeah, it looks alright, but I want more from it, then you need to keep pushing on. And a lot of people around you will go, no, stop there. That image is lovely. Don't muck around with it. and you might not, but for the next artwork, push it and see what happens. And if it goes to the point where it's ruined, that's okay. You then know where your border of limitations are, where you can work to build up your skill level to move past them, or just go, okay, that's where it stops. That's where I need to get to before I destroy the picture. I know where the barriers are, or the border. So you can develop your artwork that way as well. So even in these few short weeks, because again, remember that if you've been drawing from the first time we ever did this, it's not actually that long. 22 weeks, 2 hours long, that's 44 hours, that's not even 2 days of artwork. You know, if you drew solidly for 2 days, that's where we're at with all of these 20 odd weeks of art lessons. So you've got to break it down to how much time you actually physically do artwork. Now, thinking about it is almost as important as doing it as well, because you can answer a lot of questions yourself in your head as you're doing the artwork, but also when you're away from it as well. So if you're wandering around Tesco's, any supermarket that you're shopping in, I'm not sponsored by Tesco's by the way, it's just one I happen to go to because it's handy. You can muse about those things. You know, if you're sitting down on a Sunday morning and you're reading through the Sunday supplements in the newspapers, if you still buy them, if you don't read them online, and you're flicking through and you're just looking at the images of things, start to muse about the quality of the marks or the visual images that you see. You can play with it visually as a thought in your head, and then when you get down to the practice, you have a focus to do something, and it often then gets past that problem of I don't know what to draw. When I'm staring at a blank page, I don't know what to do. Even if you just write down in a little notebook or a scrap of paper and you stick that in your art pad, of things that you want to question. And now your list might be massive to begin with. My list is quite big as well, because I'm constantly going, ooh, what about that? And write a little thing down, stick it in the book. Or I'll stick it on a post-it note and pop that in a sketchbook somewhere. And I might not refer back to it straight away. There might be several months or years down the line, and I'm flicking through going, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. And you can pull it out and add an element to your artwork. So you're never left with that sort of, I don't know what to do on my page. How do I start? What is it I need to do? Sometimes the questions give you a sense of focus that you can work on that one particular thing, and that one particular artwork is trying to find out your solution around those things. So like we were saying about Michael's artwork, how you play around with your color palette. Well, what colors are you looking at? What color are you actually looking at when you look at your reference picture? What can you see in those colors? Often when you ask people about colors, it's quite subjective, and when you say look outside the window and explain the colors that you see, people just go, oh, blue sky, green trees, green grass, grey pavement. And you go, yeah, but look at all of the greens in the trees. Are they the same as the grass? And I go, well, oh no, they're not. The trees are slightly darker green. What type of dark green are they? Well, more of a bluish green. And they'll start to add elements of colours to it that they see. Now you might come from a different perspective at it. You might see it from a different time of day, or the lighting conditions might be slightly different, so it'll change the colours that you see or represent. So that's why things are constantly moving. There is no one answer to these things, but that's what's interesting about art. You've got your influence, and what you say is right if you mean to say it. Now, the worst thing is people just go, oh, I looked through my colour and I just had one green, so I used that one. Well, okay, you might need to kind of work on what you have as materials. That you might need to mix up your own colours if you're painting to find the solution to your green, or you might need to go back to the art supply store and find a solution for the greens that you need, or you might add another element of another colour to that green that you have to warm it up or cool it down, to add different elements to it to see what it does. So yeah, but play around with it, have fun. BB, that's quite random. You don't say your breakfast was pork, how to make bacon. I thought you were talking about Francis Bacon. um, Again, another great painter, comes from a completely different background of art and expression and visual thought, and how he put those marks down. And he put them down in such a way that were very impactful. It wasn't about making a nice, easy viewing. It was about expressing something of himself and what he saw and how he put his painting down. And when you look at the art history of people's lives, either on a personal level or on a social level, as in the time that they were around, it can have a heavy influence on what they created. And I think Francis Bacon was certainly one of them. So that's what makes art interesting, is your individualism. So don't necessarily think that you have to perform an image to be accepted by everybody, because I think at that stage, if you're trying to please everybody, you'll please only a few and probably not yourself. But you can set goals for yourself. It might be that I just want to get my image to be representational, and when you get there, you've got I need it to be a little bit more. I need it to be a little bit this, and you can push your artwork on and build it from there. So hopefully that's all good. Good art chat this morning. Enjoying that. So yeah, keep those questions going, BB. Alex, keep chatting, everybody. Kathy, any more questions about glasses? I'll try and answer them for you. I've just wondered whether using a monocle would work, or you just keep closing one eye. Could have one eye for seeing distances and one eye for working on close-up stuff. It'd look quite cool as well, wouldn't it? For just take a monocle out and put it back in. Anyway, I'm gonna get on with this drawing. So yeah, I'm gonna zoom you in a little bit more. There we go. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Just get the wrong way when I do the zoom. So as you can see, when I zoom this in, this is slightly, I'm going to make it a bit wobbly, but I'm going to try and move this camera a little bit closer, a little bit straighter. It's looking at the portrait from an angle, so it might be slightly skewed rather than my direct view. The camera's got off again. Awesome. Just as we got started on the drawing, the camera goes off. You definitely don't need to see the top of my forehead. Let me get rid of this little screen capture of my computer software, because that's totally irrelevant. There we are. Luckily enough, I now know how to do this relatively quickly. That's famous last words, isn't it? Save relatively quickly. Oh god, it's gone again. If you don't hit the right one, it changes the entire setup. Excuse me. So many buttons to click. My view. There we go. I've got that. Go back to this. Hit that. I'm sure you can see on your screen things being highlighted and changed around. Obviously, you don't need to see the top of my head. It just takes me a little while for my computer to kind of catch up. There we are. Done. If anyone lives near a branch of the range, they have got sketch pads reduced to £7 a piece. Yes, it's a good point, Kathy. You shared that with me earlier on this week. There's a range of paper that I use by Dale Roundy. It's a heavyweight paper. I think they're doing A4 and A3 size. So A3 is like a good, decent size to draw on. I don't necessarily draw on A4 size because it's very small, and but for working out and sketches ideas and practicing bits and pieces on, it's a good alternative, and it is really cheap and expensive. So if you do have a range near you, or if you don't, see if they're available online as well. That is a fantastic price because they are a little bit more expensive. So yeah, good shout, Kathy. You've also been thinking about magnifying glasses. You can get, because we were chatting about them the other night with Andrea, because she does a lot of needlepoint sewing on an amazing scale. It's mind-boggling the amount of patience she has. It takes almost a year to create these wonderful tapestries and embroideries. But she has the same problem now with glasses, and there's like 3 or 4 different sets of glasses that she's got floating around the place. Where whether we can get like a screen, it's almost like an iPad sized magnifying glass, which she could just bring over so she can see this like matrix pattern that she has to follow to create the artwork. But I was just thinking about that for the artwork. You can get these extendable, if you can see it in the screenshot in the top right hand corner there, that we're holding my iPad until Inky jumped on it. But yeah, where you could put like one of those magnifying glasses over it and swoop those across. There is one of my friends, Michael Geddes, who's an artist here in Northern Ireland, we have a thing called Creative Peninsula. He's an amazing artist. He does these very microscopic drawings. They're basically based on microscopic cell studies. But his drawings are so detailed, and he uses these magnifying loops that surgeons use to do these very, very tiny drawings. But if I say tiny drawings, tiny mark making, his drawings could be about sort of a meter square, beautifully detailed. But he uses that magnification in his glasses so he can see the quality of imagery that he's creating in his artwork. I think we talked about before an artist who did a picture of Marilyn Monroe. Took him 10 years. I think there was a documentary on him. I think it's In Search of Marilyn, or In Search of David, or something like that was called, because he wanted to show David Hockney his picture. So see if on YouTube if you can find that. And he drew to a definition of 10,000 dpi. So if you think about it on your computer, if you're printing off an image, if you did 300 dots per image, it's quite a lot of information on a 300 dpi. He was drawn to a level of 10,000 dpi, and he had to develop not only using these sort of incredibly high magnification glasses that he wore, but also to control his breathing as well. And he used to put these slings around his arms that he could rest his arms in as he was drawing, to take the weight of his arms so he wasn't getting tired. Can you imagine holding your arms up like that, drawing for a long period of time? It would start affecting your shoulders, it would start affecting your back. So to take the weight off, he developed these slings for his arms to be kind of hoisted on off a thing on the roof, so it made his arms feel weightless, so he could just concentrate on the very tip of his pencil, and where the tip of his pencil was on the page. So yeah, whenever you do a drawing, it throws up technical challenges, the physical how to get that stuff down onto that paper, and how you draw. So just to recapture or re-go over, I draw on a very vertical plane because I like to see the artwork in front of me, so the artwork isn't laid out on the table that I'm seeing it from a different perspective. It just makes me seeing the image better, so it doesn't skew my perspective of it when I'm, say, drawing on a table and you lift your drawing up and realise that you've elongated the image. So I always try to tell people to draw on a vertical if you can, or if you're drawing on a flat surface, to try and get over the top of it in a comfortable manner that you can see your artwork from the above down. Hopefully that will either remind you about those things, or if you've never heard it before, this is the first time you watch Arty Chat, hopefully it'll help you that way as well. So yeah, back on with the drawing. I'm going to tone some of these things down now. I'm quite happy where things have been started to place. I'm not going into details of teeth, of little tiny elements of it. I'm still working on the larger elements. There's a lovely shadow I think I need to start putting in as well, which is just the turning of this cheek here. It's a very thin shadow. Let's put that little element back in. And there's dark elements just around that one. I think I can add a little bit of small tone just there. You got to think about your drawing in 3 dimensions. where things move around. You know, the shape of your face as it comes around your face. So I've got a lovely, I set this up kind of on purpose today with the light kind of shining harshly on my face on this side. It's different from the light that's coming from this way. This is more of a natural light coming on my face. If I just flick that over to that camera. So this is more of a natural light as it comes through the window, and there's a lot more of it, so it fills that side of my face up more. But where it turns around the shadow of my face, so we get this there we are. Right, try and draw that line. We get this that way. This kind of, it's very hard to do it back to front, kind of edge where that area of light is lighter than this area of light, but then there's a small bit of light area just in the center there of my head, and it's where this eyebrow goes around my face and dips back in. So there's a center point here between the two eyebrows that is dipped in and comes back out. So as it dips in, it gets a little bit darker, then it gets a little bit lighter because it captures the light coming out from that window on that side of the dip, and then it slowly turns over and starts to get darker. This is furthest away from that light source, but then it starts to pick up light from this light source. So this light source is obviously different. It's more of a spotlight area, so it captures shape. As this going over my cheek hits my jawbone, and my jawbone dips back in and then comes back out for the side, shape of my skull. So it hits the cheekbone and it follows the shape around, and as it reaches this point, it can't quite, the light from this light can't quite get around this side of my face, so it gets darker here. But this area underneath my eye here on my cheek is capturing light from that window, not that light source. So the two light sources are different. One's a harsh light, one's a more softer light. So when you're looking at a portrait, you've got to look for these different light element qualities. It might be a reflective light, so light that's bounced off a surface. So if I got up close to my drawing surface, I would get light that's bouncing off of my drawing page from that window onto my face. So it would light my face up in a slightly different way. So you've got to think about, well, what is it you're actually looking at when you're looking at light on somebody's face? Whereabouts is that light coming from? Because it has a consistency to it. So if you don't pay attention to those things and you make assumptions of where the light is or how you've drawn a nose before, so if I look at that right now, there's a lovely line that goes down the center of my nose, and it is darker on this side than obviously this one because the light's come through that window. But how that light breaks over the shape of my nose, it's darker up here because there is a harsher turn in the curvature of my nose across the bridge than there is at the tip of my nose, where it's softer because it's larger and rounder. And it's also then at this point picking up light from this spotlight, so it adds that three-dimensionality to it. When you're looking at tone and light, it adds that depth that people often struggle with about putting it in. And it's not always about just laying down shadow, it's about how you may lift some of your graphite off your page to create a highlight, a softened highlight. So what we're talking about hard and soft edges. So where we've looked at where light is, as the light comes around the cheek there, if I flip it back to the other camera, as the light's coming from this direction mainly, as it hits this part, it creates a little tiny shadow on this part of our mouth. Very, very subtle shadow. But then as it breaks around here, it gets softer. The shadow underneath her lip, as it comes around, it almost contours that bottom lip as a little darker shadow. And disappears into this shadow on this side. And it's how you start to build up those elements. There's a lovely kind of sculptural quality to this stage of the drawing, where you stop worrying about the things and you draw the shape of the things and you draw the shape of the shadows, and then slowly the image starts to appear. You think, I can't remember actually drawing that, all I drew was shadows, and slowly the whole face started to develop. I can notice that this shadow below the lip is slightly wider, which helps kind of soften the chin a little bit. There's a small shadow just there, which gives me, I'm drawing the shadow shape rather than a line underneath the chin. Helps define where things are in location as well. Looking at that, this area is slightly in shadow because this area is catching most of the highlight. So again, I'm really laying graphite down really lightly. I don't know how much of this is going to show on the screen because it is very light, but drawing lightly is something you can build upon, whereas if you go straight for your darks and draw them in really darkly, it's almost like that posterization that we talked about earlier on, where it becomes very stark. Now visually that might be something you're interested in and just something you want to play with. That's fine, that's not a problem. But if you're trying to draw representationally, there's a lot more subtlety involved. So I tend to go from your light areas to your dark areas to build up stage by stage and start to build the drawing up in total in its entirety, so you're moving around all over the picture. That's just generally the style of the work that I do. I have seen very good artists as well work from one corner of the page right the way through step by step, and that's fine as well, whichever process suits you most. But even in those small areas where people start off, they will draw lightly to begin with and then work to the darks before they move on to the next bit, and then have a reference of what is light, what is dark from that small corner to the next bit, and they take that information with them, so they have a consistency throughout that entire picture. The way I draw is I tend to build up everything in balance with each other. So I draw the shapes out to the composition to be right, and then I start to build in the tones of things and the shapes of things. And when I put a shadow down, I know this hair is going to be darker as I go along, but I start to look for where is this tone right now, where can I see this tone? I can see it in here. So what if I start to lay a shadow underneath this eye as the same depth as this shadow, and then if you start to look at it and go, oh, hang on a second, that looks like it's too dark, but it looks too dark in the rest of the comparison of the picture. Then if I went over this area and darkened this hair down, that starts to feel lighter, and it's how you transition between one shadow shape and the next shadow shape, and this is how I'd start to build it up. And if you kind of map out your shadow shapes as we've done already and where things are placed, I'm not worried about where an eye is anymore. Quite happy because we've worked all those things out. I'm now playing around with the tonal aspects of things, so I can look for the darkest areas, not go as dark with my pencil, but maybe apply a slightly heavier application to make it a tone, like a step darker. And so there's a lot of sort of going around the picture over and over again, but I think it just helps me refine the image and achieve a likeness that is subtle. I like the subtlety of portraiture, how you can just change the nuance of a shape or a shadow to add emphasis to not only somebody's likeness, but as we were talking about before, the conceptual side of stuff. So if that all makes sense. I just want to jump back there just to make sure I haven't missed anything on chat. Nope, good. You've all gone quiet. It's either you've fallen asleep or you're busily working away in your artwork, which is great if that's the case. If it's not, you've fallen asleep, wake up. Or just continue sleeping, it's entirely up to you. I've got no control over you whatsoever. This is the internet. It's interesting when you look at different people and how they do things online, and you know, it tells you a awful lot. I love people watching, and so we can't get out on COVID, so people watching is kind of reduced a little bit. We're starting to open up and things are opening up, so you know, even if you're just shopping, how people do certain things certain ways tells you a lot about them culturally. It tells you a lot about them in a reference of time. it tells you an awful lot about them as their personality as well. So you look at how people will push a shopping trolley um, through the supermarket, how they navigate their way around the supermarket, and you know, some people don't have time. They want to get in, they want to get out, and they're almost using their trolley as a battering ram to push through everybody just to get the things that they want, and so they can get out and get on with the rest of the day. And then there are moochers who kind of slowly donder and they sway the trolley around as they're walking around. Now, all these are people like you and me. There's no difference to them. We all live in the same time frame and same areas where we live. But there are other things added to it, their personality. And if you start to study or observe these things, you can start to see how you can add elements of character to your pictures, and it just helps you inform your visual references as well. So if you're sitting in a coffee shop, you know, take 5 minutes to look around you and see, because how you see informs your artwork, and if you start to be aware of it, you've got a certain control over it about what it is you'd like to say in your artwork, but you need to see it first. So it's a practice thing. So I've always been a great people watcher, not in a voyeuristic manner, but just generally I keep my eyes open when I would look around, and it might be a small little thing that somebody does, and it's not about them. I'm thinking about that as a little kind of key element that I might add to my artwork later on in some format. And I mean, the artwork won't be about that person. It'll be just about a simple thing. It could be a gesture about how somebody held a teacup in a coffee shop, and I might notice the angle of their hand and go, "Oh, that was interesting." And I keep a visual memory or log of it, or I might write it down. So when I'm working on a picture that I haven't thought about yet in 10 years' time, it'll spark a thing in my head where I'll go, "Oh, I remember the little note I saw about somebody where they held a coffee," and I'll look through the sketchbook and go, "Yeah," and that notation will bring the visual memory back that I can then tweak my artwork for. So it all adds to your experience. It all helps build up to artworks that you haven't even thought about yet. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes out. Oh, you're trying to copy along the iPad? Good. I say, hopefully yours isn't broken like mine. I'm now going to have to invest in a new iPad or tablet, so I have to do the investigations. If you've got any links or ideas about what you think is good or bad for iPads, let me know. Concentrating is hard. It's difficult to make. It's like Sophia Loren, you know. Concentrating is a skill, and it's a skill you can develop over a period of time. I wasn't born with the level of concentration that I now have. It's something I've developed, and you can develop that level of concentration. They say people with ADHD, I don't have ADHD by the way, but people with ADHD can't concentrate. That's not entirely true, because they can find a vehicle where it allows them to concentrate, and you can find some people who have attention deficit disorder who constantly bounce around and need stimulus can be incredibly focused on certain tasks where it just quietens their mind down and they're able to do that one thing, and they can get lost in it for hours. And it's trying to attain that same level of concentration in your drawing. Sometimes it's about slowing your thoughts down and quieting your mind. So when you look at the portrait, you go, "Oh, God, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this." You can't do everything all at once because you've only got one pencil and you've only got one set of hands. So you have to break it down into steps and stages, and it can feel very frustrating because you want to get it all just done, but there is no way to get it all just done with one pencil and one set of hands. So you have to break it down. And today I'm going to map everything out, and if I don't get everything mapped out, I will continue this next time I draw. So it takes away all of the questions about, "Oh, I could draw that, I could do this, I could do this." Do one thing at a time, and it's very methodical, and it feels quite clunky, mechanical to begin with, but the processes that you go through start to become more second nature, so you're not thinking about them in such a mechanical manner that you are when you're drawing. Just you've already accepted that today we've mapped everything out, so don't have to worry about the composition of things. I am just going to start to slowly darken tones down. So where I've got the darks, I'm going to make them a little bit darker. Where I've got very light areas, I'm going to actually look at them and think, okay, this entire side of the face needs to be a tone darker. So I am literally going to tone this entire, get my pencil to come out a little bit. I'm actually going to swap over to this one. So having different leads in pencils often helps, rather than changing your leads out. So we've got lots of different propelling pencils, have different grades of pen, stick a bit of tape around it. Right on the, in this lead I've got an H, and another one I've got a 2B, another one I've got an HB. So having a range of pencils can sometimes help you. Even the white of that eye is tonally darker than the white of this eye. So as you start to tone that whole area down, I'm just concentrating about getting this to be even. I don't want a scratchy line. I just want an even coverage of one tone. And because I'm laying pencil over pencil, it will naturally start to tone down. So I just need to think about consistency of my pencil marks, and that's all that's going through my head. I forget all the rest of it until I get this done. So slowly and tonally, this whole area of your face start to look that little bit darker, and it goes right the way across this shoulders. It comes around here to about that point. There's a slight part of the shadow which comes down here. In fact, there's nothing on your face that is as white as the page, so this entire page needs that level of application pencil. So it helps deconstruct the image of your finished picture into easy bite-sized steps. If you concentrate on just that bite-sized step, you're not concentrating on everything, it allows you then just to go, okay, it's just this bit, and that's all I'm going to do. If you find it takes practice to sort of go to quieten your mind down a little bit, so as you're doing that, you'll go, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. You have to go, no, I'm just putting the tone down. No, I'm just putting the tone down. Or in the beginning part of your drawing is the finding out the composition and structure of things. So don't rush ahead. Don't rush ahead into doing the tonal aspects until you figure out where things are. Because there's no point toning down the lovely light that's on one side of your face if that one side of the face is in the wrong place, because you are effectively kind of making work for yourself, because eventually you're going to go, oh, that's in the wrong place, I have to rub it out. So observe and think and place, observe and think, readjust, observe and think, yep, move on to the next stage. So it's taking those kind of bite-sized steps and slowing your process down actually speeds you up. I mentioned this an awful lot in my real life classes, but slow is fast is slow and slow is fast is a term used by you see it on documentaries and things about the military. When they're moving around, they move in a very methodical, slow and clinical manner, because they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to rush into a room because there might be a bad guy hiding behind the door. So they slow down, and before they get to the door, they'll listen. As they move across the threshold, they'll observe what they can see in their peripheral vision, what they can see in the room, what they can see down the crack of the door. So take just moving through the room very slow, but it means that they get it done more quickly and efficiently. If they've just ran through a door and got shot, then they'd have to call the medics, and then they'd have to pull somebody else in and put somebody else's life in danger. So it would take longer. So moving quickly is the actual opposite of doing something efficiently. Sometimes going through things like you're drawing. I know it's a strange analogy, but I just heard that phrase and thought, well, that phrase is exactly how we could use it. So slow is fast and fast is slow. If you do things methodically and carefully and considered, you will get through to the end of your picture without really thinking about it, and it feels like it's been taken no time at all. If you skip steps and rush and do this bit over here and do that bit down there, and drawing's not right, I've got to turn over the page and start again, the timeline to actually get it done is actually longer. Although you've been doing it in a hurried manner, doing it in a small, methodical, slower paced and more considered means you achieve the result that you want quicker. So it's never about the speed of your drawing, it's about the quality of your thinking in your drawing. If it's considered and calm, and you're not it's a very strange thing with art. Taking away the emotive side of it. Vincent Desiderio did a great talk with John Dalton, a podcast called Gently Does It. Go and check that out. I think he's done about 100 and some odd, so you'd have to scroll down his podcast. So if you go to www.gentlydoesit.com, look for a guy called Vincent Desiderio. When he was talking about drawing his portrait, it's a picture of his son, and it's quite an emotive subject. He talks about having to draw it with ice cold water in his veins. He can't emote over every brushstroke and the entire meaning of that artwork with every mix of colour or application of paint, because if he did, he'd never get it done, because it would feel so much towards that picture that the actual act of feeling those emotions as you're painting would be exhausting. And you have to kind of separate the conceptual side from the technical actual application of drawing or painting, to do it and see it first, then step back and go, is this the feeling I want from the entirety of my picture? Is that concept coming through? So it's very similar to when we're starting off, where you want to be all busy and get it all down, and it's all the frustrations separate to your artwork, which you have to kind of separate so you can get on with just the relaxing process of drawing. So it doesn't matter what it is you're drawing, you have to be aware of the emotional content or the emotive content that you want to achieve, but you do that by reflection. You need to kind of stand back and look at it and assess it. It's very hard to apply that emotion into your picture as you do it, because it's exhausting and it's tiring. Some artists, needed that kind of quality to come out through their actions as they painted. So I'm thinking of people like Jackson Pollock when he painted. He needed to get a certain emotion, mark, and aggressiveness into, almost whipping his canvas with a bicycle chain to get a certain expression in mark. He couldn't just gently lay it down. So he had to work out where to turn things on and off, how mark making sometimes needs a certain flurry or flair or action. If you need an expressive mark to fly across the page, you can't delicately draw that expressive mark going in across the page. You need to have the confidence just to do that. So on your page, separate to your artwork, you need to practice those marks. But the process of practicing those marks is separate from the emotive impact of the picture. What you do is practicing the mark making. So when you're able to come to your real life finished artwork, you can put that in with a flurry that you've got as a mark making technique, but you're thinking about it in a much more analytical, placed manner. And the same for drawing like this. You kind of have to take out. I mean, I could say, okay, well, I know Desiree, I know what she's like, and I know her sense of humour and how that comes across, and I want to do all this into it, and I want to do this to it. But I have to kind of go, now what am I drawing right now? I'm drawing the tone of a top and how dark it is up this point, and that's have to kind of break it down, and that's how I'm breaking the drawing down. So if you take those bite-sized chunks and break your drawing down, the concentrating is hard in the entirety of the thing. But it's a balance between stepping back and seeing the whole and working on the bit that you're working on, and step back and seeing how that fits in with the whole picture, and then stepping back into your technique. So it's that push and pull of the two things. When you explain it, can sound quite contradictory, and I am really aware of that, because you can see the confusion in people's faces when they're in a classroom, and the same goes for me as well, where one week the teacher is telling you one thing, and then the next week you come in, it's kind of the opposite, and you don't know what the right answer is. And the truth is, it is a little bit, sometimes a bit of both, and you have to flip between both the sort of the two answers. You do need to see the macro, the small nuance, and you also need to see the big picture. You also need to do artwork with a certain flurry, about speed or expressiveness. You also need to slow the picture down. So I know these explanations can sound quite contradictory at times, but it's about the combination of them and how you apply them into your artwork, and that kind of push and pull effect helps you achieve your artwork. So again, if you're ever confused about anything that I say, I don't mind you going, I don't understand. What do you mean by this? Because I'll try and break it down a little bit further for you, because we're all picking the information up at a different rate. I'm still picking the information up. I'm still out there looking at artwork, looking at pictures, looking at paintings, looking at drawings, looking at social media feeds of artists that I like, listening to their podcasts or their live streams, and analysing how they work, analysing the way they all describe things, and I kind of reflect it back. Is that something I think about in my artwork? Is that some sort of process that I do in my artwork? No, it's not. If I changed my process, would that suit me and what I want to say? No. Okay, well then you don't have to take it on board. You can think about it as an interesting artistic point of view, but you don't have to take it on board and make it yours. Or you can go, I never really thought about it that way. I wonder if I tried this, whether that would work. And it allows you to muse about your artwork in a way that helps you move your artwork on. So I say no man or woman is ever an island. You do always take an influence, whether you think you're alone in the art world or when you're alone in your studio working on your art. You are constantly surrounded by the visual stimulus of things and people and light, and how that can influence how you think about your artwork. I'm sure you would have heard the phrase "there's a certain quality of light in the south of France," and how people would go there to paint because the quality of the light, and the quality of the light here in Northern Ireland has a certain quality to it. So your surrounding life, your literal environment, can have an effect on how you see or think about colours. The same for cultural references. So in, I think, China, where they, which was Japan, where they give each other a gift, it's always in a red envelope, whereas we might see red and think of warning and danger. They might see red and see a gift of kindness. So colours can have a cultural reference. Time as well, when you think about it. So different genres of time have different colours associated with them. So you can think back to the psychedelic colours of the 60s, the neon horrible colours of the 80s. Anybody who seems to live through the 80s didn't really like them, but now when you listen to the kids, they see the 80s as completely retro and are loving those colours. You can think of kind of the grey shiny suits and the red shoulder padded suits of the 80s, that kind of yuppie culture, quite brash and slick. Or you can think about the grunge colours of the 90s. So you can associate time with certain colours and textures and qualities. So you can certainly apply those things to today, what you see and how you want to control your image. And I think that's what it is. It's almost think about like as a director of a film, but you've got one picture, one literal picture in which to tell a story, where you can curate your light, your color, your application, your textures, and you're in control of them. And you you've got that decision to make. And at that point, when you get to that awareness, there is no wrong answer. You're just creating artwork which fulfills a visual question for you. And if you do one picture and you reflect on it and go, you know what, I didn't quite like that. I wanted to make it feel softer or feel more dramatic or feel more calm. Then I need to change things around a little bit. I need to change the lighting. I need to change my application of pencils. So you're always in curation. So there's never one way to do anything. It's always about the artwork in which you want to try and create. What is it you want to do? Sorry, it's a very long-winded answer to the comment, Desiree, but if it's difficult to make your image like Sophia Loren, do you want me to create you like Sophia Loren? Then I would go and study. How is she lit at her heyday? How is she actually lit or posed? And I could have you lit or posed in a way of a form of that 1940s, 1950s film, in a way that when I took the reference picture, I would bring out those elements, and I could have you positioned in a certain posture, which was more Sophia Loren-like. So your portraiture could have an essence of Sophia Loren in it. If you are drawing a picture of Sophia Loren and it's not quite the same, you know, step back and go, okay, have I got the placement of things in the right place? You know, am I thinking that she just has big sweeping hair, you know, giant eyes, heavy mascaraed makeup? Have I placed all those marks in places that I thought they were and they're not actually in reference to the picture that I've got? Do I need to move things around? Do I need to kind of figure out the placement and structure of my things first before I jump in and start shading everything really in dark? So you can break it down step by step. So hopefully that helps. I've got a funny feeling you want me to draw you like Sophia Loren. If you'd said that right at the very beginning, when you sent me the picture, I could possibly have looked at Sophia Loren and looked at a lighting condition from an old movie and changed the background to suit that, so which may have added a reference to it, which might, if we kept it secret between ourselves, you would always know that that had the element that you wanted to achieve in that picture. So it's an element that might have come out through the drawing. People go, oh, it's very much like, it's kind of like a film starry type of finish you got to Desiree. But can you see what I mean? How you can add things to artwork more than just the image itself. You can manipulate and change and curate. This is what the illusory idea of art is. It's not a lie, but it's not the absolute truth. You're embellishing upon what you see. You're adding influence to it. So when people see it from outside, they can take on a bit of your artistic vision through looking at your artwork. I hope that makes sense, but hopefully that answers sort of more than just the drawing process of drawing a face. There's lots of different aspects to it. I nearly said layers like an onion, which is a terrible reference, but you know, it's also very true. There are different aspects and elements to drawing, which is a constant evolving space. So yeah, I think I might actually do. I might just see if I can find a link for Gently Does It, because it is filled with lots of different types of artists, and he talks to these artists for more than an hour, and the conversations are really interesting. So I'm going to find, let's see, type this down. Ooh. Says you're bad for my typing. It's probably hear my keyboard typing. I've just changed my keyboard and it feels a little bit strange. Here we are. There's a link. So the funny thing is, when I've typed in gentlydoesit.com, it doesn't come up with that. It comes up with johndalton.me, But I'm going to find you the link here and post it up in the chat. Hopefully that works. And here we go. Hopefully this works. Yeah, there we are. So podcasts. So when you go to this page, the first one is actually, believe it or not, some of the more popular podcasts, and Vincent Desiderio is right there at the top. It's number 137. So I'm going to pop that into chat to let me know if this link works for you. Hopefully that link works for you and it'll open up in a new page and doesn't take you away from the chat. But have a listen to one or two of those, especially if you're drawing, a different time in the week, or if you're doing something mundane like shopping, where you know that you're going to pick up the same stuff that you shop every week, and you know where the aisle is. You can pull this up on your phone, stick some headphones in, and listen to it as you're going around, and just the pure conversation of artists talking about art and why they do stuff and the problems that they have with it is kind of it invades your brain and kind of sits there as a little seed and grows from there. These are just purely auditory interviews. There's no visual elements to them, so it's not like a podcast version of this where you can see John asking Vincent the questions. It's just recorded and it's just the sounds of their voice, so it allows people to carry on with their work. If you can sponsor him, you can sponsor him directly by giving him a sponsorship on, like, send him a $5 for a price of a cup of, he often says you can help support him by the price of a cup of tea. So every time I listen to the podcast or a new one comes out and I listen to it, I'll send him money just for like a $5 for listening for it, because the information is gold. But you can also listen to them for free and get out of them what you want. You can sponsor him on Patreon. I think he has a Patreon account, and you can supply a regular sponsorship for him on that way as well. But I do think that's a great way of supporting something like this, because there are no real consistent art programs on, say, the TV channels where you can get that level of art education, because you're talking about, it's almost like if you think about, if you went back to the time of the Impressionists, and every week you got to talk to Degas, Renoir, Manet, Monet, Van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec. If you manage to get the word of those artists on a very informal conversation, if you go, oh wow, this is amazing, I can listen to how they think and what they feel about their artwork, rather than trying to assume from a book that somebody's written in the 1970s about that person, because they may have met them once on a bad day, or they may have just obsessed about them and love everything that they do without question. And when you get the information directly from the horse's mouth, directly from artists talking about their artwork, it helps you muse about, reflect back onto your own artwork. So I always find them incredibly interesting. And also, some of the artists he's talking about are amazingly qualified, both artistically and technically as well. And you'll often hear them answer similar questions in the same vein about, it's not the materials that they use, it's the playfulness in which they've used materials to find out what it is that answers their visual quest, their answers as to why they do things a certain way. And their advice kind of is always interesting as well. So it's always a quizzical process of going, I don't know the answer to a lot of the questions that they get, that you're asking me. I think about this way, or I try to be playful with my process, or people have a very set process, and it allows them to play with different other things in their artwork. So amazing resource. Also, if you do have any other art podcasts or information that you listen to, let me know. There is another one which I will also put up, so don't want to forget about this one as well, called The Jealous Curator. Oh, have a type. There is the arts curator, a lovely lady called Danielle. She interviewed me once for this. So in the many hundreds that she's done, again, it's a conversation that, and it was lovely because it's as free and informal as it sounds. Literally, contacted me via Skype, and we just had a conversation, and we just talked. And the conversation aren't constructed around a very interviewer and interviewee. It's a more of a conversation, and throughout the conversation, you know, she does the background work, and so does John Dalton as well. Does their research on the artist, so they'll ask questions about elements of your work that they want to know themselves. And often those questions and conversations go off into lots of different tangents, which adds more to learn or understand about why an artist does things that particular way. So yeah, I'll pop this one as well. Again, great podcast, come from artists from lots of different backgrounds and approaches to art and why people do art. She's on to episode 181. I can't even think. I was 114. So you can see that. I mean, that was done a couple of years back now. There's so much content there, which is free and easy accessible. But I always say, look, if you are going to take that information, try and find a way of supporting it in some way. She's got two great books as well. Your Inner Critic is a Big Jerk, which is great. You know, we've all got that self-confidence issue of when you're doing your artwork. I'll pop this link up first. There we go. Pop it up for you. When you're doing your artwork, there is always a part of you which is going, that's not very good, is it? That shouldn't be like that, should it? Why did you put that there? That was silly, wasn't it? And you're kind of like going, oh my god, I'm beating myself up. And the book kind of answers those questions for you. It's like, tell it, shut up. Tell that inner voice, which is constantly overly critical, going, oh, you're not as good as the other artists, are you? Oh, look, you know, the other artists are producing far much more work than you are. There are, it's just a human condition thing, I think, of how we'll judge ourselves, how more harshly against other artists and other people than any harsh judgment you get from anybody else outside. We're much harsher on ourselves. It's how to take our internal criticism and turn that juggernaut around into being something productive. Yeah, I could be producing more work than on the same level as all the very prolific artists out there. But, you know, right now, I'm drawing this picture. And the other pictures I can't draw because I can only draw one picture at a time. And I take that on board. Is the yes. That is the aim. But let me work through some of the reasons why I need to get to that stage first and what it might be. So it might be that I need to curate time to create lots of artworks on a similar level. It may be that I need to build space for me to create lots of artworks. So there might be conditions, reasons why, not excuses, but conditions why you're not producing on such a prolific level as everybody else. So it's to take criticism out of your inner critic and to quiet it down, to put it in its place, so you can get on with the work and enjoy doing what you do. So yeah, where we can tell ourselves, oh, we should be doing this, should be doing it faster, I should be quicker, I should be more accurate. Yeah, we can be all those things. Like, how many times of every week I will do more drawing, and I end up doing more chatting. But I think it's more interesting. For me, it's more interesting. It's more valuable as a process to me to have a conversation, even though I'm sat in a room chatting to myself. A lot of my conversation today is drawn from well, excuse the pun, but drawn from what we're talking about in the chat, because that what we're talking about in the chat is what's of concern to you, and it's something that, to be honest with you, every artist goes through, and it's how I'm able to use that as a basis to, do these podcasts. If it was just me talking about my artwork and myself, I would get bored of me. Not that it might be interesting to other people, but I already know this information in my head about myself and what I need to do. But to other people, it might be of interest. So, but if I was to continue doing that after 22 weeks, I would find it a very challenging experience. It might be interesting for other people to listen to, but I would find it tough to do. Whereas this way, the conversations that you throw up, the musings that you throw up, even if I take them out of context or I haven't quite grasped what you were talking about, and I start going off into debate, it's a breeze to talk about. It's fun and it's an enjoyable experience, and therefore that's why I like doing it. Because it's not literally just because I was chatting with Andrea last night. She's going, "How do you talk for 2 hours? What do you talk about? Do you not run out of things to talk about?" And I'm going, "No." It's like there's lots of people talking about lots of stuff, and that's why I talk about what is relevant to us. That whole idea of the art community is the fact that when you ponder about something, I ponder about it as well. I learn things and thoughts, and I muse about stuff that we have a conversation about. I'll go back and I'll reflect on some of the things I might have said in podcasts or broadcasts and go, I wonder if that really came across. Did people understand that, or did that come across right? Or maybe I should say this in a different manner, or maybe I should concentrate on doing certain elements in the drawing or the picture in a certain manner that reflect back onto this because of the conversation we had. So it's a constantly learning process, which I find to myself personally fundamental to my art process. I'm constantly reflecting back that I've just made friends with the fact that I'm never going to know it all, but it allows me to be as playful about finding out about as much as I can to get to the place where I feel as though I've attained more knowledge and more experience in the artwork, that disseminating it and giving it out and sharing it on things like this or through live classes and teaching is important to me as a process of me as the artist, and it helps me kind of curate and refine. If I keep talking about it, thinking about it, it helps me create it as well. So the more I do it, the better the artwork becomes. So it's an important process to my art practice, is to share information, and that's something I've learned over the last few years. Whereas if I just keep all the information myself and I just create pieces of artwork and put them out there, there's a disconnect. I like the connection in artwork, so this is an added element to that. Do I have used colour pencils? Yes, I have used colour pencils before, Alex, and I've used them for certain projects, and I love colour pencils. I love colour pastels. I love oil painting. That's the one that you can see behind me there, and I use colour in a slightly different way for different mediums. They have different qualities to them. So if a portrait calls for a certain colour and there's a certain quality to it, I know I can dip into doing colour pencils. Colour pencils are incredibly vibrant, incredibly soft and subtle. There's a flexibility in them, but I can also get that in other mediums as well. So it's about a preference, but I don't use them an awful lot. I use two different brands of colour pencils when I do use them. I use a hard colour pencil and a very soft buttery colour pencil. So Luminescence by Cavendish do a range of colour pencils, and Prismacolor do a range called Verithin, which are the hard ones, and I use a combination of those. There used to be a Charisma colour pencil, which is not a manufacturer now, which would beautifully consistent, very highly pigmented, so you didn't have to put loads and loads of pencil down to get the colours to pop out. But they were beautifully, the consistency of them was amazing, and they're very hard to get hold of now. So if you see them come up on eBay in a small box with half-used pencils, they go for a lot of money. But at the time, they were the slightly more expensive range of pencils to get. So Caran d'Ache do a great range of pencil. Faber-Castell do a great range of colouring pencils. Don't do a great range of colouring pencils. Prismacolor do a great range of colouring pencils. So all of these different brands have different qualities to them. So a blue in one brand isn't the same blue in another brand, even though it might be called cobalt blue. So you start to kind of search around for different applications. So you build up a collection basically over a period of time. If you're using them an awful lot, there's different things you can do. You can melt the waxiness of the pencil with low odorless mineral spirits that have a much more watercolory type feel to it, and then you can build layers up on it. I use a particular paper called Stonehenge paper. I think there's a link on my website, which I'll put up now. The reason why I'm putting the link up now, I forgot to put it up earlier, is there's a page on there with different links to mediums and materials that I use, and it's got links to Stonehenge paper because it's a cotton vellum, and the qualities of that paper were initially made for print, and what happened was that colour pencil artists got hold of it and realised it's great for colouring pencils because you could add lots of layers of colouring pencils on top of each other and it wouldn't degrade the quality of the paper. On lots of other cartridge papers, as you put lots of layers of colouring pencil onto it and added things like low odorless mineral spirits to melt the wax, it degraded the quality of the paper. So you can go through the paper really quickly, but the cotton vellum tended to keep its quality quite well. So you could do about 7 or 8 layers of colouring pencil on top of it without it starting to degrade the quality of the paper. All those small little tricks, I found that information out. There's a colour pencil Bible. So if you're looking at colouring pencils, I don't know if I had that book on my page. Let's see if I can find that link to that book. Oh, there's some links on there from Amazon that I've got, which is an affiliated link. Basically, if you like anything on there and you follow the link and you eventually buy something, I get a small percentage for that back. You don't add anything extra to your cost. It's just a way of informing people of where stuff is, basically. So you can either use that link or don't use it. It's entirely up to you. There are links there to a couple of art supply places as well that we have here at home. There's Art and Home on there, and there's online as Jackson Art Supplies that we use. You can also use lots of other bonds. This one's called like Cass Art. There's Dick Blick in America. There's billions of them. If you find a good link to a good art supply store or a good art material, let me know, because we can share it out on the YouTube stream. Because the more information that we have about where good art materials are and what works and what doesn't work, sharing that information out is gold. That's always beneficial to everybody, including myself. So yeah, when you see a book or something like that, there was a book about portraiture that somebody was mentioning before, and I got it as a Father's Day gift, and it's been really interesting. It's made me think about a couple of my portraits in a slightly different manner. So some of the things that you might talk about as suggested things that they're important to me. I don't say I'm not an oracle. I don't know everything. You might know about an art material, an art process, or an art blog, or an art supply store, which is great. Cassie, you were talking earlier on about the range, about the colouring, the art pads that are there. An amazing price. Very competitive. We've obviously bought in bulk and had them sat in the store and just thought we need to get rid of these so we can make some money on them, and just pump them out there. If you can get hold of them, why not? That's great. So the more information we can share, the better. Uh, the Colouring Pencil Bible, that's it. By Aliona. I'll see if I can find a link to it, because it's a great colouring pencil book, and I found that out by a blog. I just realised that camera's gone off again, so bear with me 1 second while I try and get that back up. It's an ongoing part of my part. It's also, I think, if I ever get the new camera and get that camera in place, I'll kind of miss this bit. I won't really. It's a pain in the bum. There we are. Back up. There we go. Good. Right. So what I was going to do there was see if I can find you a link to that book, because the book in itself is a how-to book. It's how to draw things, but it takes you through processes of just how you can apply that in lots of different ways, and the actual information on how you draw and paint with colouring pencils is invaluable. There's little tips and techniques in there all the way through the book, which you go, ooh, I never thought about how you use colour like that before. So you start to have a different appreciation about colour appreciation, and how you can apply that to painting, or how you can apply it to your drawing, and about depth and the qualities of tone and things like that, all come out of a colouring pencil book. So if people see it and go, I don't use colouring pencil, I'm never going to look at that, they could be missing out a lot of vital information which could really help them with their artwork. So I tend to look at art books and references from all different genres of artworks and materials and processes, and kind of put them through my own filter system about what's relevant to me right now. But it builds up a library of knowledge that you can just dip into whenever you want, and that makes you a much more flexible artist, I think, and where you're never quite scared of drawing anything, because you've got lots of things to fall back upon as a resource. Or you start to think about how you can investigate things to find out how to do something. Let's see if I can find this book for you. Pencil Bible. There it is. Oops. No. There. So if I copy that and I'll paste it into chat for you. Sorry, it's kind of not visually interesting. There's the one to my page, and this is the one to that link. I take you to the Amazon one. Again, that's affiliated link, so if you click on that one and you do like it and you do buy it, I'll get a small percentage of that back. I'm not saying you have to, it's there for your reference, okay? Just want to be clear. So yeah, but the information in that book is really good, and there are a lot of other books like that that are on my website normally. Fortunately today, for some reason when I clicked onto that, it just came up with, oops, something went wrong, check back later. So I have to have a look at that on my website. But yeah, again, if you find out a great book that's really helped you, or a great podcast that you really enjoyed listening to that has been informative, please share them with me, because I think what you pick up as a bunch of artists all out there, I'm only one person. There's only so much information that I'm going to sort of come into contact with. So the more we share, the more we know, the better we get as artists, and the bigger the community of art grows that way. Again, I'm going to apologise because I just realised that there has been an immense amount of me chatting today and very little drawing, which I apologise for. It's called Arty Chat and Draw Demo, and there's been a lot of art chat and little drawing today, so apologies for that. But the chat's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Hopefully you've been following the processes of me drawing this through as well. Just mentioning about shapes and shadows, you can see there's a quality of shadow that comes underneath this cheek here, because the highlight is catching the top of the cheek. Again, it helps thing about in shape and rendering tone, it can be really subtle. And one of the things you need to think about are the edges of your drawing, the edges of the image that you're creating, about how one light changes into another light. Is it hard contrast between a harsh light? So what could be harsher is the contrast between the dark and the light on this side of the face, but the softness between the transition between this shadow underneath the cheek and the highlight that we'll find on top of the cheek, and it creates the image of a line. There is no line there. It's the tone of this area changing softly into the tone of this area. So this has had a very light application all over, but if I could even put another layer down, and I'm using this is an H pencil and using it very lightly to place a layer of graphite down. It's almost imperceptible in real life, so I don't think it's really going to come across on screen because of the resolutions of filming and lighting conditions and things like that. But there is a layer of graphite going over the entirety of that face, because there's nothing on the face that I'm creating which is as white as the page. So I need to tone all of it down to a layer or two and then build up the shadows. And you can see here on the shirt or the top that you have on how that line is standing out, but that line is an indicator about how dark the rest of this has to go until that line starts to disappear, and I'm left with the flatness of the material and the qualities of that material and the depth and the darkness of that material. So that line is starting to disappear in this. I'm just doing this a little bit of a demo. You can just maybe zoom down a little bit and zoom in. So yeah, that line's going to start to disappear as I build up the tonal quality of the whole of that top. So the line starts to disappear and I'm left with the top itself, rather than this is where that is, they're using lines as a bordering element. You can use that as an artistic element, and certain artists use it well, but for me, when I'm creating a more realism in the image, in life we don't have lines delineating edges, we just have the thing itself. We can draw lines to begin with for placement, but as you develop the drawing, or as I'm developing this drawing, I'm starting to eradicate the line and build in the form, the stuff in between the lines, and the lines start to disappear and I'm left with the thing itself. So creating that illusionary effect of a sense of representational realism, but without going down the level of hyperrealism about studying every fibre in the top, because I don't want to go down that level of detail because it's not relevant. And also I'm drawing in a small scale, so the level of that detail will be even more detail, and to me it takes away from what the point of this picture is about. So you can always build a balance between what's relevant to you as an artist, what's relevant, what do you want to do, as opposed to what is expected. So if you just want to create a simple likeness, you might not have to go into all the levels of details that we might be working in these portraits to build up subtleties of tone and shape and tone. You might just want to get to the stage of keeping it down to the very simple basic shapes, to keep it down to where maybe the image is right now as an essence of who that person is. That you don't need to go down all the levels that I'm going to be going down to for this portrait. And that is fine. That's okay. You don't have to do things the way I do them, but they can use them as a springboard to bounce off and to jump in and out of to see what's relevant to your artwork. I hope that will make sense. Is that the time already? My God. We've only got 7 minutes left before 1 o'clock. I really don't feel as though I've been sat down for more than 5 minutes. chatting to you guys this morning. Really enjoyed it. The chat's been great. The questions have been really good as well. So do keep them coming. Do feel free to share the broadcast with on your social media feeds, or tell people about it. The more people in the community, the better. Or you can press subscribe if you haven't already, and that will just mean that you constantly get an update as to when I post things. So if you can't watch it live, you get a notification. You can follow the link that way, rather than I always share this on Facebook, because this is where we originally started it off. I was thinking about it the other week, and there's different benefits and features from different platforms. And one of the things I noticed about Facebook is that it will throw it out there, because the algorithm is sort of set up to encourage lots of people to use their platform for live streaming. It throws it out there to a bigger audience, what seems like a bigger audience, when you do it live, but the follow-up of people watching it isn't as big afterwards. Whereas YouTube, it might not feel like there's many of us in the room now, but there's 6 of us watching now, but I know over the week a hell of a lot more people get to watch it, because of the way the algorithms are set up on YouTube. So it's really, I'm learning an awful lot about how both social media works, but also how it works for different elements in who follow social media, but how artists use social media as well. But I know some really good artists who sharing other people's art podcasts and broadcasts. That's why I shared John Dalton's and Gels Curators today. What a network, what a friendly network it is of building up our art community. And it's not our art community about where we live, it's our art community in the world. And it sounds very grandiose and huge to think of it that way, but that's the way it works. I've met some amazing artists online who I just wouldn't have had the slightest knowledge of if it wasn't for the internet and social media. So it's how we can use these things to the best of effect. That's why I keep saying this to you. If you please, if you ever come across anything you think is of interest, tell me about it. I'll have a look at it and we'll share it out on Arty Chat, because this is what it's about. It's about building a community. It's not just about me doing this. It's about you doing it as well. What's relevant to you and having a conversation. I do want to. I'll finish this off during the week. I want to move on to another portrait of a lady called Leslie. So we'll start that as well. Alex, you talked to me a while back now, it was a couple of weeks back, about drawing little simple elements of drawing an eyes, nose, mouth, and I think I'll be doing that as well. If not next week, the week after. So I might start Leslie's portrait, take a break, and do the thing about the eyes, nose, and mouth, and then go back to doing Leslie's portrait, and go from there. So if there is anything that you want to find out about, or you want me to demo, do let me know. Send me a comment, send me a message on my Facebook page, Lee Boyd Artist, just saying, can you just cover this, or what do you think about this? You can ask me questions offline as well. You can leave comments, because if you're watching this at a later stage and you want to just type a comment in, and I'll get a notification so I can go and check it out. So even if it's like 4 or 5 years down the line, and you send me a link on this and you want to comment on about it, it still might be relevant to whatever podcast I am doing at that particular time. So yeah, there we go. Angela, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Catch you guys next week. It's nearly 1 o'clock now. Again, apologies for I say, oh, we need to get this finished this week. Again, chatting too much. This is why I don't do drawing demos in my art classes, because I let you get on with your drawing in my art classes, and I go around and I chat an awful lot. If I was to try and do a demo and chat at the same time, it can work, and then it can go horribly wrong. Sometimes I can do a demo and it's about a thing, and a demo is I do a class demo and it's literally about 5 to 10 minutes long. But normally I'm doing my demonstrations for for you, the individual student in the class, and I move around my classes doing little demonstrations all the way through, because they make them relevant to what you do. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kathy. Thanks, Alex and Angela and Desiree, and BB, who was in earlier on. So yeah, guys, it's been great. Keep it coming. You're off to a big gammon lunch, BB. Brilliant. Guys, take care. I'll see you next week, same time, 11 o'clock GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. And yeah, any problems, issues you're having, send me a message on Leeboyd Artist Facebook page, and we'll try and get them through and sort it out here as well. Alright, guys, take it easy. Enjoy your Saturday, enjoy your week. Take care of yourselves. Bye.